Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another A to Z Sports Live. I'm your host, Tyler Fornes, and we are going to talk a lot about a really impressive Minnesota Vikings win over the Detroit Lions on Christmas Day. Got to tell you, it's a really exciting one. And there are a lot of different ways that we can kind of approach this. Last week, what we talked about is the whole draft position debate. Do you really want to prioritize draft position versus trying to win football games? That was something that a lot of people really just wanted the higher draft pick. And that's understandable because when you talk about a higher draft pick, there's a lot of conversations that happen with that. A higher draft pick usually means you get a better football player. Better football player means better team, and better team means you have a higher chance of making the Super Bowl. But when you win football games, it gives your team momentum. It gives your team a sense of belief, especially in a down year where they started 4-8. And that Seattle Seahawks game had me really starting to lose faith in what this regime was doing. Kevin O'Connell just had one of his worst games. He could not get Max Brosmer propped up at all. And then you had Kwesi Ofamensa, who, like, this free agent class was not working out the way you wanted it to. The drafts have not been great, but there still is a lot of financial flexibility and a lot of talent on this football team. But the last 4 weeks have changed a lot. And it's one of the reasons why, me personally, I don't like the hot take culture thing, because hot takes only do so much for you. Hot takes are the lifeblood of what this industry is. But at the end of the day, they don't give you value. Hot takes are just to draw clicks. Hot takes are just to try and get attention. But it doesn't get down to the root of what the issue is. It doesn't get down to the minutia of these conversations. And to me, that's the number one thing that I'm looking at. What is going on? Why does it matter? And the fact is, the Vikings won 4 games in a row, and they've done a great job in those 4 games, really raising the level of what this team is. And you can look back at this Christmas Day game against the Detroit Lions as another example of that. One of the big things that I loved about this game was it did not matter that the offense was putrid. The defense took over and was arguably the number one storyline in the NFL coming out of Christmas Day. Brian Flores looks like a bona fide head coaching candidate. If you didn't believe it before, you certainly believe it now. They forced 6 Detroit Lions turnovers and nearly stopped them on a 4th and goal to prevent the first passing touchdown they allowed since the Baltimore Ravens in week 10. It is week 17. A really impressive feat, the Vikings going so long between allowing passing touchdowns, and it took the Detroit Lions multiple 4th downs in order to make that happen. The whole idea of what this Brian Flores defense is relies on intelligence. And when they signed Josh Metellus to that extension initially in 2023, it was like, really? He's kind of shown you nothing that he can be a long-term starter for this football team. Why are you giving him more money? Well, it turned out to be a really smart move. And when it comes to Kwesi Ofamensa, people don't give him credit for things like that. They don't give him credit for, hey, we're going to look ahead of the game and we're going to give this guy an extension before he breaks out, so that when he does break out, we're then getting the value because we believed in him. The Vikings did the same thing with Adam Thielen, because remember, it was a 4-year, $22 million deal. Then he signed that 4-year, $64 million contract. Those things matter. And intelligence has become such a huge part of what this defense is. Why has it become a huge part? Because all of the confusion that they bring with it, the simulated pressures, the creepers, the post and pre-snap rotations to confuse the quarterback. And the one thing with Jared Goff, he can carve up the blitz, but he doesn't always carve up the blitz. And when he makes those mistakes, it's because you're sending the house. And it forced Jared Goff to commit 5 turnovers. 5 of them. It was the first 5+ turnover game the Vikings had since week 3, and the first 6 turnover game since 2019, when they whipped the Los Angeles Chargers in that little dinky stadium, the soccer stadium. It all matters. It all adds up. And it all compiles when we're having these conversations about who's doing what and how important this defensive unit is. They forced 6 turnovers. And when you watch this team and all these games that they're not forcing turnovers, you can tell that they're going for it. You can tell that they're trying to strip the football. But make no mistake about it, it wasn't working. And it raises a question of how do you change your approach? Is this an approach kind of deal? Or is this, hey, you just stink and you need to completely abandon it? Because when you have a good process, good results will come from that process. And that's a really big factor here because good results will always bring good process. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to get there. And turnovers is one of those elements. They were always trying to strip the football. They were always getting these passes batted down. But when that happened, instead of the ball landing right in the arms of a defender, Dallas Turner would be like a foot and a half away from being able to catch it. That has happened to him like 4 times this year. Kevin O'Connell even commented on it a couple weeks ago. The bounces just aren't going our way, but we're doing the right things. It will come. And what happened on Thursday? They all showed up. Now, you would have liked to have seen that spread out just a little bit. Hey, give us one more turnover against the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe that game is different. Give us one against the Bears, maybe that game is different. Those matter. But they got them all against the Lions, and it knocked them out of the playoffs. The process in which they went about it was trying to confuse Jared Goff. Byron Murphy interception, he was lined up at free safety. Now, a lot of times you'll have a instance where you'll do like an inverted cover 2, where normally your cornerbacks are in the flat and then your safeties are deep. Well, inverted, safeties are in the flat and the corners go deep. He just lined up as a cover 1 free safety and was just like, I'm just going to hang out. And he got an interception. It rocked. And then Harrison Smith, early in the game on a 3rd and like 16, and this has been a really big problem as far as a fan perception with this defense. They allow some deep shots down the middle of the field. Those happen when the Vikings don't get pressure and the quarterback has like 4 or 5 seconds to throw the football. It really stinks, but it's kind of the one big flaw in this defense. If you protect, you can carve it up because the coverages post-snap are not too difficult to decipher. It's all the happenstance and the window dressing that you give it that really makes an impact paired with the pressure. When you block it, you can beat it. And that's the bet that Brian Flores is willing to take. And who can blame him? Because when you don't get that pressure block covered, you can take advantage of things. Early in the game, that 3rd down that I talked about, Isaac Tesla caught a dig route, took it for about 25-ish yards first down. Harrison Smith got baited. So Jared Goff is looking at him with the eyes and just trying to drag him over here. And then boom, straight ahead. Tesla now has a little bit of an opening to be able to catch a dig route. Harrison Smith didn't get baited every time. And that interception, he knew. And this is where that intelligence thing comes into play and why it's such a big deal for this Minnesota Vikings team. He knows that Jared Goff against the blitz is going to take 3 steps, hitch, and throw a little simple like glance route or dig route over the middle of the field to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Well, instead, Smith sees that and is doing a little bit of a rotation on the outside and boom, fires and gets the interception, stepping right in front of him for an easy pick. That's great stuff. That matters. And I'm really happy with where we're at from this perspective because you have an intelligent team that has nothing to play for. Brian O'Neill fought through multiple lower leg injuries just to continue playing. Aaron Jones has fought through multiple lower leg injuries and a shoulder injury that just keeps popping up over and over and over and over again. And he keeps wanting to play. This team wants to play for each other. And I think that's a really big factor that we aren't talking about. Because if this team wants to play, that's a great culture. And that's why winning here is so important for this Minnesota Vikings team. Winning breeds excellence. It breeds positivity. It breeds belief. And winning these last 4 games, because they could be 4-12 right now, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, 4-12. Well, let's pull up Tankathon. What would 4-12 have the Vikings at? Because right now, the only 4-12 team is the Washington Commanders. And the Vikings have a harder strength of schedule than the Commanders. So they would be sitting at 8th overall right now. Because remember, strength of schedule, the harder your strength of the easier your strength of schedule, the higher draft pick you get, because therefore you are theoretically a worse team. That's how the tiebreakers work. So the Vikings have a 515 strength of schedule and the Commanders have a 504. But Also included with that would be an extra Commanders win. So I apologize. They would bump up to 7th overall. And you have 4 3-12 teams with the Browns, Jets, Titans, and Cardinals, and the 2-13 teams. So one of those 2-13 teams would then become a 3-12 team in the New York Giants because you obviously beat them. So the Raiders would have the unquestioned number 1 overall pick. That matters when it comes to wanting good football players on your team. But is it really worth 10 spots in NFL draft selection to have a miserable culture and a team that just doesn't believe in itself? No, it's not. And I will fight on that. I will fight for that belief because winning is always a good thing. Yeah, we can talk about, oh, this win lost this team, this quarterback. Yeah, you can boil it down to that. But players and coaches never try to lose. Organizations will try to tank. And that's part of the reason why Brian Flores has a lawsuit against the NFL because of that. I'm never going to tell you that it's bad to tank. And the reason why I'm not going to tell you it's bad I'm not going to tell you it's good to tank because tanking breeds poor culture. It does not help you. So if the Vikings were to tank, what are you going to do? Trade Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, get rid of all of those guys specifically so you can have higher draft picks? That doesn't make any sense. Where this really comes into play is now the Vikings right now are slotted with the 17th overall pick, and they have won 4 in a row. The New Orleans Saints are now 5-10. They won 3 in a row. If they had lost all those games, they'd be a top 3 pick. But winning matters. Winning is a huge factor in continuing growth. And it stinks that you're getting this one without JJ McCarthy, which you would want him to keep playing. But that broken hand kind of stinks. It just is what it is. But you want to keep winning. And you're doing so with a bunch of guys out. No Jonathan Goddard, no Christian Darrisaw, no Ryan Kelly, no Brian O'Neill, no TJ Hawkinson against the Lions. You're winning football games. That's huge for the belief in Kevin O'Connell and this whole regime. As fans, you want to see that. You want to see wins. You want to have fun watching your favorite football team. You'd feel a little bit better if you believed that Kwesi Ofemensa was going to nail this draft. And yeah, that's a fair criticism. Is Kwesi Ofemensa going to nail this draft? I cannot tell you he will. I cannot tell you he won't. I will say I believe his draft record is better than people give it credit for because he's found really good players late. But you have to look at those players as a product of what their draft position is versus, oh, that player's just really good. He found Jalen Redmond. The whole organization did. They get credit for that. If Jalen Redmond was a 7th round pick, everybody would just be praising the heck out of it. Levi Drake Rodriguez is a good rotational player in year 2 that you found in round 7. Massive hit. And that's where when you have the conversation about draft hits, you have to look at it from the lens of when they were taken. Vikings have more hits than you believe because of that. Will Reichert has missed 2 kicks this year out of about 60. Big hit in round 6. It all adds up. It all matters. It all factors in. Culture building wins is what we've seen from this team in the last 4 weeks. Now, is that going to mean the Vikings are going to win a Super Bowl next year? I'm not going to tell you that. It wouldn't be worth trying to gaslight anybody into believing, hey, these are going to be the catapult. But it helps. If JJ McCarthy takes a huge step with all of the rehab that he's going to do, and then he's going to be able to work on his mechanics in a lot of February and March, which is when you need to work on it. That's a big deal, right? That's going to help your 2026 Minnesota Vikings a lot. And maybe that's all the Vikings need to really take that next step. Now, you're going to have some offseason moves. You're going to have this, that, and the other thing, but make no mistake about it. The Vikings are likely going to be a better football team because they had these wins. Guys are going to want to stick around. Guys may be willing to take pay cuts because I feel like we're on the precipice of something special, especially if you beat the Green Bay Packers next week. Let's go to this comment from William because I think this is an interesting kind of pivot point as we're having this NFL draft conversation. Go back to the trade with Detroit. You could have had Kyle Hamilton. And this is where I want to talk about Kwesi Ofemensa in a positive way. Because when you look back at that 2022 draft, and he's talked about it, the fact that He was trying to eliminate a 33-0 lead, as he described it to Kevin O'Connell, with that one class. He was trying to do everything at once. You can't do everything at once. And that was a big learning point for him as the head guy. He tried to. And that's where the impetus of that trade came in. And I think that's a really big deal. The fact that he learned from that and he hasn't made that same mistake again. And when you look at the process from that 2022 class to 23, 24, and 25, he has improved his process. I think that's a big deal, right? Improvement is good. Now, he's not perfect. He hasn't completely nailed the draft class, but Jay Ward's flashed the last couple of weeks. That's been a big deal. Jordan Addison, he's had a little bit of a rough year, but everybody has, because the adjustments to a young quarterback and just, look, the receivers just haven't been good. They haven't been played up to their expectations. None of them have. Except Jalen Naylor, who played above them, which he's going to get paid somewhere. There's a lot to like about some of the picks he's made. Dallas Turner looks great. McCarthy's flashed and getting people really excited about, hey, maybe this guy can be the future after a disastrous first few starts. Those things all matter. They all add up. And Donovan Jackson looks like a hit. Ty Felton, we still have no idea about. And then you look at Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins has flashed. There's hope that this team can really turn around, and that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has shown a real improvement with his draft strategy. We'll find out. The tough part is you don't know if 2025 is going to be a good draft class until about end of 2027. But I have more faith in what he's doing from a process standpoint than most people do. But yeah, if they would have Kyle Hamilton, you feel a lot better about this defense, but you also wouldn't have Josh Metellus. And I'm not saying that you should take Metellus over Kyle Hamilton. That's not it at all. But that would be hey, Metellus doesn't get a chance to break out because you took Kyle Hamilton. It would be an opportunity cost, let's put it that way. Let's go back to the comments here. Patrick says, I have to find a better quarterback. JJ McCarthy doesn't have it and keeps proving it. This is an interesting one. Let me take a quick sip here. It's amazing how your throat dries out when you have conversations here. So when it comes to JJ McCarthy, it's evident that he just needs more time. And it's evident that he feels more comfortable with what he's being asked to do on offense. So many of the issues he's had, and I've talked about it, there is a correlation between JJ McCarthy playing quarterback and the drops that the receivers have. It is not a only JJ McCarthy fault. It is not only a wide receiver fault. They are both complicit. JJ McCarthy needs to throw better balls, more catchable balls, better placement. So accuracy would be like anything in this purview. All right. So if I go like this, that's a catchable ball. But if it's like right here, it's still catchable. You know what I mean? But easy catches, putting it in the right spot all the time and not having Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison have to make all those ridiculous catches. The two interceptions last week against the New York Giants, Jalen Naylor having to extend up to catch the ball. That's not very catchable. That's not easy for the receiver. And on that out route, he's jumping and turning. Those things all matter. You have to look at it from that perspective. McCarthy needs to fix those mechanics, and that's where this offseason will come into play. And you should feel better, more comfortable about where he's going to be from that perspective. Now, is it going to be as simple as, hey, he just gets some time in the offseason and he's going to be completely fixed? No, can't guarantee that. You can feel more comfortable. I still think the Vikings need to bring in another starting capable quarterback. I'm going to beat the drum for Malik Willis all offseason because you can't go in with just Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy. It'd be irresponsible to do so with this talent. But he's got ability and he's shown it. But the tough part is we're 2 years in, we still don't know if he's good or not. That really sucks. Jordan says we need to start O-line to win the playoffs, no question. Look, I know the default for this Vikings team is O-line, O-line, O-line. The O-line hasn't been nearly as bad as you want to believe it has been this year. There have been injuries, and the injuries have been a huge factor. But so many of the issues that this Vikings team have had has been because the quarterback isn't able to process and see the field well enough and do those things. It's less about the O-line and more about the weakness at quarterback. If Sam Darnold were behind this O-line, this team probably wins 13 games. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think the O-line is this huge issue. A healthy Christian Darrisaw, a healthy Brian O'Neill, and let's say you have Michael Juergens at center next year. That's a good O-line. You don't need to put investments in the O-line. There's this belief among a lot of people where you have to have a really good player at every position. You just can't have a bad one. You can't have Dakota Dozier. So if Michael Juergens can be an average center next year, or if it's Blake Brandel, that's more than fine. That's one of the reasons why I advocated this past offseason to keep Garrett Bradbury, because he's average. You don't need to put all these resources into every position on the O-line, because then you're going to have huge weaknesses elsewhere. And having just one okay player is more than fine, especially when you theoretically are going to have two good guards next to him. Terry says, we need an O-line and the quarterback's never going to look good. Look, I kind of talked about it. This Vikings team has a solid O-line. You're more mad because of injuries, and that's fine. But when the unit's been healthy, it's not an O-line problem. It's a quarterback problem. Quarterback has as much to do with the O-line looking good as the O-line does itself. Lindell has an interesting one here. We keep hearing about other teams possibly poaching Flores as a defensive coordinator, just digging deeper and paying him. Why can't they go ahead and the Wilfs go ahead and dig a little deeper to keep him? That's what I'm hoping to see. Keep this defense attacking while we're still building the offense. So I don't know what the deal is with Brian Flores. It was reported this offseason that he has said no to an extension. Why would he say no to an extension? Are there issues in the building that we just don't know about? Is Flores trying to keep his options open for that what if scenario? I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know. But I can tell you this. It worries me that he doesn't have an extension. I also don't think it's a huge deal that he doesn't have an extension yet. To my knowledge, it's not money-based. It's not a money-based issue where Flores is holding out for trying to get more money. The Wilfs are willing to pay money. They're not cheap owners. This roster in 2025 is the most expensive cash roster in the National Football League. They pay their coaches good money. They are not afraid to do so. This is not an inept organization that does not put resources towards trying to win football games. I don't know what the issue is with Flores, but I completely understand being frustrated that he's not under contract after this year. But we'll see. We will see. Corey says, let's bring in Lamar Jackson. Well, if he's available, you got to call, right? You got to try. I don't know how legit some of that reporting was. And I don't mean that as an insult to the beat writer from, I believe, the Baltimore Sun, because it was immediately refuted by ESPN within hours. There's always truth to that. Remember Stephon Diggs? There's truth to all rumors. Well, what is the real truth? How much of that is the real truth? I don't have a good answer for you. But I will say this. If he becomes available, you have to try. You have to call. It's Lamar Jackson. You have to see if you can make it happen. It would be a huge mistake if they let him walk. By the Ravens, that is. Jason A says, Flores with the Giants DC would be insane. Him with that Giants front seven would be scary. Yeah, it would be awful. But I don't think he would go to be a DC in New York for another head coach. That's just my guess. And I don't think he would ever be the head coach in New York for the Giants. Why? It just, historically speaking, I just don't see it happening. Greg says our wide receivers and running backs don't have the longevity to develop McCarthy or any other rookie. Make a splash for an experience-proven quarterback. Greg, I appreciate that. If you're still watching right now, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you mean, because I don't know if I'm quite getting where you're coming from. Are you talking about injuries? Are you talking about experience? Like, if JJ McCarthy can't thrive with this level of weapons, then that's a JJ McCarthy problem. It's not a weapons problem. You can look at it from a coaching perspective. You can talk about, hey, maybe O'Connell's not doing enough to help maximize McCarthy, which we have talked about a lot. It's not as simple as McCarthy is given every single tool to succeed. he was given a really good offensive coordinator. He was given a really good play caller in O'Connell, and a system that works, but that system is really hard. And Kevin O'Connell's talked about how he's had him on hard mode consistently, right? So we'll see what that looks like. We'll see how that manifests. But I don't think you can put this on the group of weapons around him. Like with can't help develop McCarthy. I don't see that. So maybe there's some extra context that I'm just missing from you, Greg. So if you're still watching, please give me some more. I would love to comment on it. But until we get that, I'm going to move on to my final topic of the day, which was that Jordan Addison jet sweep. And this is where some of the play calling thing with not Brian Flores, Kevin O'Connell really comes into play. I think he's done a tremendous job as a play caller. One of the reasons I do believe he's been a great play caller is quite simple. He does an excellent job of taking plays and using them at the right time. Now, O'Connell, it could do a little bit more like misdirection stuff, but one of the tough parts about doing misdirection consistently is if you are always having misdirection, then it's less impactful when you really need it to be. Against the Lions in the first matchup, the second to last drive where they got that field goal, and there was that sequence inside the 5-yard line where it was 1st and goal, and then they had to kick a field goal to go up 10 instead of a touchdown to go up 14. Well, in that, the first play was a counter pitch. So everybody did hard steps to the left, and it was just a pitch out to the right, really trying to get the Lions moving one way so you could take advantage of them. And then the next play was a jet sweep to Jordan Addison. And that jet sweep got 15 yards. It really took advantage of Aiden Hutchinson taking those 2 steps towards the quarterback. If you continue to do misdirection all game long, guess what Aiden Hutchinson's going to do? He's going to calm down and wait. And when you calm down and wait, buddy, that's not going to be that impactful. But the Vikings didn't do a lot of misdirection stuff all game. They waited for the opportunity. Kevin O'Connell caught Aiden Hutchinson shooting the gap and going into the backfield, and Jordan Addison got the edge. Jalen Naylor just inside the numbers does like a little mini slant looking route to draw the cornerback, and then he blocks. Addison gets the edge and takes it to the house. Those little play calls make a difference, and that was a big reason why the Vikings won the game. Right play call at the right time. Doesn't matter how good the design is. Doesn't matter how good the talent is. It's also about timing it right. And O'Connell timed it flawlessly. He did a great job of figuring out when to use it. And Addison, great vision, great speed, and just took it to the house. Those things matter. And Kevin O'Connell does a great job of it. I'm very happy with where things are at with this Minnesota Vikings team. And I hope you are too, because they aren't in a position where they're going to win a Super Bowl next year. They could, but right now, I don't think you can realistically project, hey, they're going to the Super Bowl in 2026. But you should feel a lot better about the fact that they've won 4 in a row and they're now 500. Kevin O'Connell might lead this team to a 9-8 record after starting 4-8. That's a good thing. We should all be excited about that. Hey, it's Bob Swede. Nice to see you, Bob. So obviously, Bob is talking about my other channel, Vikings First and Skull. Yes, I do have that. And then I also do this for A to Z Sports. We're going to do some more live stuff, Bob. We're going to try and do weekly at around noon. Today got to be pushed back to 1 o'clock due to an outside commitment that I had in my personal life. But yeah, you're going to get to see more of me. You can also see me on Vikings First and Skull. I do a lot more short form for A to Z Sports, which I think is a lot more. Yeah, it allows me to be a little bit more concise with my thoughts, and we'll do long form stuff too. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot more of these, and especially this off season when breaking news hits, I'll just jump on here and go live for 10 minutes. We'll just talk about it. It'll be a lot of fun, and we're going to do these more and more throughout the off season and into next year. So I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday season, or if you don't celebrate the holidays, I just hope you had a good Thursday. Thank you very much. Oh, before we go, Greg has responded. So thank you, Greg. Compare McCarthy to Drake May as an example. Enough said. McCarthy's not talented enough to be a franchise quarterback ever. Jefferson will be in his 9th year next year. I doubt he's very happy this season, but too professional to complain. So a couple things for you, Greg. One, thank you for adding that clarification. I think that's awesome. I love Drake May. I had him as my number one quarterback, number 2 overall player in that class. I begged the Vikings to go trade for him, and they tried. Patriots said no, and they were right to do so. Jefferson will also just be in his 7th year next year. So it won't quite be that 9th year, as you said. He's still a few years from 30, thank God. But not talented enough to be a franchise quarterback. To me, it's not a talent thing with McCarthy. It is the getting used to the speed of the game, the processing, and all that stuff. But he's only started 9 games. The durability is a real concern. And being injury prone versus prone to injury, I think, are 2 different things. I don't think he's made of glass like a lot of people talk about, but he does not put himself in positions to stay healthy. And he needs to figure that out. I don't know if he's going to be the long-term answer, but I don't think the answer is a surefire no. If you have the opportunity to trade for a top quarterback, I think you got to look at it, and you have to be pretty comfortable trying to make that happen. Thank you guys so much for joining. We're going to be here every single week delivering everything for A to Z Sports. We're also, you can check us out if you're not on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and A to Z Sports.com, where you have all of my written content as well. I'm Tyler Fornes. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care. God bless. Skol Vikings.